2019 Bentley Continental GT car review. Austria's Großglockner High Alpine Road had only recently opened for your season once we nosed our 2019 Bentley Continental GT from the toll gate. With spritzing rain plus the melting snowpack wetting the tarmac, we began our ascent with the more than 8,200-foot pass, winding and unwinding the wheel through one switchback after another even as we stair-stepped to the clouds then descended by having a thick fog. The previous Continental GT do not need been happy about this road. Sure, it might have stormed within the mountain, pulled along with the ample thrust from a single of its turbocharged engines, but it really would have suffered with the turns, impatiently waiting to unleash its torque when the wheels were again pointed straight. The good points of 2019 Bentley Continental GT: 12-cylinder thrust, looks environs, newfound athleticism. The bad points of 2019 Bentley Continental GT: tight back seat, plutocratic pricing. Although this really is still a lavish grand tourer instead of a playful sports vehicle, the revolutionary Continental is surprisingly in the home on the mountain pass. Instead of overburdening its front tires, it uses all four contact patches, steers faithfully, and exhibits a graceful fluidity that the predecessor didn't know. The Großglockner revealed a fresh Continental GT that felt fitter, fleeter, more energetic, as should the car obtained an elixir of youth. That run the Hochter Pass dovetailed with the modern Continental's visual impression. First introduced for 2004 and reworked for 2012, the Continental GT led vehicles out of musty obscurity with nearly 70,000 total units sold, thousands by Bentley standards. It is becoming our icon, says Chief Exterior Designer John Paul Gregory. It's essential that it be instantly recognizable. The overall size, shape, and key design elements are retained, and yet the revolutionary version looks wider reduce, although those dimensions have changed by lower than an inch. Credit the broader, more upright grille, set lacking in a more sculpted fascia. It's flanked by new headlamps with 82 LEDs arranged in matrices which unfortunately will likely be dumbed down for the US market, with simple high or low beam functionality instead of the ability to pull the plug on individual LEDs to shape the beams around oncoming cars. Design-wise, probably the most critical features are the fascia is over 4 inches better the front wheels, the wheelbase is continuing to grow by 4.1 inches, plus the rear overhang which longer, that dramatically enhance the car's stance. There's a prolonged hood, which lower since the engine sits slower and farther in the chassis. Sleeker taillights are set within a concave oval panel, emphasizing your vehicle's width. The body panels are aluminum, save with the composite trunk lid, helping the automobile shed a claimed 168 pounds. Although in an estimated 5,050 pounds it's still a hefty machine. The bits in this Bentley. The greater changes are mechanical. The old version shared a platform together with the staid Volkswagen Phaeton. The newest model utilizes the VW Group's MSB architecture, seen also from the Porsche Panamera. The W12 engine returns, but this really is a new iteration. Introduced inside Bentayga, it now boasts port and direct fuel injection, a couple twin-scroll turbochargers, plus a dual-mass flywheel, yet it's 66 pounds lighter. Output has 626 horsepower versus 582 previously from 6.0 liters, in conjunction with 664 lb-ft of torque, which pours forth from 1350 to 4,500 revolutions per minute. The W12 are going to be the only engine at launch, but given which the V8 was chosen by roughly 2/3 of buyers on the outgoing car, we'd expect it to send back, probably 12 months or so following 12-cylinder model arrives next spring. Compared using the version inside the Bentayga, the W12 from the Continental makes 26 more horsepower, largely caused by different ECU mapping. It also includes a block that was altered to allow top drive shaft to poke through. That's considering that the engine has moved some 5 inches rearward within the chassis, a modification that helps reduce the leading weight bias from 58% inside the old GT to 55% here, based on Bentley. The W12 is mated for an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, the same Saurus unit found within the Panamera, which Bentley has tuned just for this application. This is the original dual-clutch inside a Bentley, and it is final programming delayed the vehicle's launch by 6 months. The results looks to be more than worth it, since its low-speed smoothness rivals a torque converter automatics as well as its shift method unassailable, although you will discover shift paddles should you want to call the shots. These are now located within the steering wheel rather than previous column mounting. Once again, the engine drives all 4 wheels. But whereas the earlier system stood a 4060 front-rear torque split, the revolutionary one effectively defaults to rear-wheel drive. If this detects slippage, it could direct at the most 38% in the torque to the top wheels, except in sport mode, when just 17% could be sent forward. The suspension utilizes new 3-chamber air springs versus walk-chamber units before. Their extra bladder and greater volume is considered to make for an even more compliant ride. They are employed in concert while using standard active anti-roll bars. Bentley Dynamic Ride powered using a 48-volt electrical system and first seen inside the Bentayga. Brake-based torque vectoring, introduced about the previous GT3R and Super Sports models, can slow an enclosed rear wheel when entering a large part to aid turn-in and brake an internal front wheel when exiting to help your vehicle power from a corner. Vented, cast-iron brake rotors measure 16.5 inches at the start and 15.0 for the rear, which Bentley boasts give them to the largest discs ever suited to a passenger car. Bentley also claims the most important binders period, at 17.3 inches about the Bentayga. Those are carbon ceramics. The fronts are squeezed by 10 piston calipers with 4 piston units acting about the rears. It's an experience. Less weight about the nose, a flexible, more rear-biased torque split, torque vectoring, and people-active anti-roll bars all significantly help toward explaining the Continental's newfound appetite for curves. On the motorway, its dynamics are less changed. The Continental GT remains a serene mile-eater. One new aspect, though, is sailing mode, which opens the transmission's clutches and drops the revs to idle speed after you lift away from the gas under certain conditions at highway speeds. Dip deep to the long travel accelerator as well as the car hurtles forward with eye-widening quickness, speed building uninterrupted with the transmission's ultra-quick shifts. Bentley says the Continental GT can reach 60 miles per hour in 3.6 seconds, as well as the W12 shows no indication of running beyond steam even into triple-digit velocities. Top speed is often acclaimed 207 miles per hour even at full bellow. The W12 doesn't sing as being a V12, however. At most it emits a discrete bass rumble, and that's only in sport mode. Once you come over throttle, you find none on the extroverted crackles and pops of, say, a Jaguar V8. The change inside exhaust note is one from the most notable differences switching from comfort or perhaps the mid-level Bentley driving mode to sport. A fourth option is custom, although the modes also control the suspension, steering, transmission, and engine response. That the Continental GT won't vary wildly rolling around in its responses, however, proves for being part of the company's charm. Rather than working to make this car interest a broad spectrum, the engineers appear to have aimed for just a cohesive character, one who blends comfort and gratification to a high degree. In any mode, the steering retains a pleasing heft and linearity, whilst the adaptive air springs and active anti-roll bars nearly eliminate body lean without penalizing ride quality. The big Pirelli P0s265540ZR21 front and 30535ZR21 rear as standard, a 27535ZR22 front and 31530ZR22 rear setup is going to be optional. Acknowledge pavement imperfections, nevertheless the chassis is undisturbed by mid-corner bumps. The four-seat interior in the Continental GT is in all likelihood its most traditional aspect. One beholds acres of leather, its quilting both stitched and embossed. The hides extend even going to usually neglected areas, the A-pillars, the sides on the console, the low dash and door panels. Glossy wood trim or a different for 2019 rib-bed aluminum alternative stretches through the console throughout the dash on the door panels, whilst the controls and switches are rendered in chrome. Unlike in past Bentleys, however, the ritzy finishes aren't compensating for dated, wonky electronics. The 12.3-inch central touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto isn't just generously sized, it's sharply rendered and simple to use. Physical buttons below and on-screen touchpoints on the side provide quick shortcuts, as well as the home screen can simultaneously display as much as 3 functions. But if that most seems too garishly modern, the optional Bentley rotating display $6,270 allows someone to press a control button to make it disappear and reveal a trio of analog gauges or, in the event the engine is off, a fairly easy strip of veneer. Ahead with the driver is usually a virtual instrument cluster, which is configurable, and there's a head-up display. Against modern trends, Bentley doesn't assume that stark minimalism is vital to style. The high, broad center console includes an abundance of physical buttons and near-leaded knobs that operate that has a quality think no haptic flat panel can impart. The Continental GT's youth regimen has not yet eroded its distinctiveness. Instead, its renewed mechanicals and toned sheet metal make it a far more athletic, better-looking version of the former self, an enviable change for individuals headed inside the opposite direction.